never knew a heart could break so many times and still keep beating, or that the soul could bleed even if no one sees the wounds. But I learned it the day you left without explanation, when I found myself alone, holding the crumbs of something I once believed was eternal. That night felt like an abyss. I stared at the reflection and didn't recognize the woman in front of me, not because of what I had lost, but because of what I had been forced to release. I let go of the fantasy. I let go of hope. I even let go of the idea that I needed an apology to close the chapter. And then, in the middle of the emptiness, something unexpected began. My rebirth. Because when everything collapses, the masks fall too. And for the first time, I saw my face bare, my essence uncovered, my soul without makeup. That's when I realized, you didn't break me, you revealed me. And so today, with the voice I recovered, I say it with no hatred, no resentment. Bless you. Because by letting me fall, you forced me to learn how to fly. Comment, thank you to the one who let me go. I found my freedom. Like if you've ever hit rock bottom and discovered that even the ground can be an altar. And share this chapter if you know someone who needs this truth. Pain doesn't destroy you. It reveals you. For a long time, I thought healing meant forgetting, that forgiveness meant pretending it never happened. But today, I know healing is remembering without hate, and forgiveness is freeing my soul from the weight it no longer has to carry. I don't excuse you. I don't justify your actions, but I understand now that some people only know how to love from their own wounds, and you were one of them. Your pain reached me. Your confusion hurt me. Your absence screamed louder than your words, and still, here I am, not as the victim in your story, but as the author of my own. Because even though you broke me, you also showed me the part of myself I didn't know existed, the part that stands back up, that wipes away tears without losing its softness, that still believes in love. But now, first and foremost, in self-love, you weren't my ending, you were my crossroads. And even though losing you hurt, it gave me the privilege of finding myself. So today, I don't curse you, I don't complain, I bless you for every dark night, because without it, I wouldn't have appreciated the light I've become. Comment, I no longer carry what doesn't belong to me. Like if you've ever forgiven someone without receiving an apology and found true freedom in that act. And share this chapter if someone needs to understand that letting go is also an act of self-love. I used to think that the person I loved most was the one who could hurt me the most. And I wasn't wrong. But what I didn't understand back then was that the pain didn't come to destroy me. It came to awaken me. Your abandonment taught me more about myself than all the self-help books combined. It showed me how desperate I was to be chosen, how deep my fear of being alone ran, and how far I had strayed from myself. When I lived only to please, your leaving was a mirror, one I couldn't avoid, one that showed me the parts of me that desperately needed healing. And though I didn't understand it at first, that pain was an initiation, not into sadness, but into truth. I walk differently now, with more silence and more certainty, with less need to explain and more ability to hold myself up. I no longer wait to be saved. I learned to rescue myself. I no longer beg for crumbs of love. I serve myself a feast of dignity. So yes, I bless you, not because you were good, but because you were an instrument, a rough tool God used to carve a more real version of me. Comment, thank you for letting me see what I didn't want to face. Like if you ever found power exactly where it hurt the most. And share this chapter if you know someone who still doesn't understand that pain can also be the beginning of their awakening. There was a time when I believed my worth depended on your gaze. That if you didn't love me, then I wasn't enough. How fragile my identity was, tied to a love that was never mutual, sustained by the hope that one day you'd stay, not out of habit, but out of conviction. But now I see, you weren't my destiny. You were my teacher, disguised as pain. Because thanks to you, I learned to recognize the difference between company and connection, between being loved and being used, between being in a relationship and being in peace. Now I can look back without trembling, not because I forgot, but because I transcended, and in that transcendence, I discovered something sacred. My soul wasn't broken. It was simply waiting in silence to hear its true voice. I no longer crawl to be accepted. I walk tall. I no longer adapt to be chosen. I choose myself. And though your absence left a void, I filled it with purpose, with roots, with wings. I bless you, because without meaning to, you taught me how to come home. To my inner home. Comment, today I choose myself, and that's enough. Like if you've ever turned tears into strength. And share this chapter if you know someone who still thinks they need someone. else's validation to discover their worth, you don't know how long I blamed myself for not being sweeter, for not being more patient, for not preventing your departure. I thought that if I had just been better, you would have chosen to stay. But that was part of the lie, the one I told myself 1,000 times to justify your absence, the one that made me carry a guilt that was never mine. Today, I see it clearly. You weren't my loss. You were my filter, the one who separated the versions of me that loved out of need from the one who now loves from fullness. I don't regret having loved, but I do regret betraying myself to keep you, and that I will never do again. I've placed boundaries where I once made excuses. I've placed silence where I once screamed for attention. And I've placed faith where there was once only fear of being alone. Now I understand. Love is not constant sacrifice, nor justified pain. It is freedom. It is truth. It is a mirror, not a cage. I bless you, because by leaving, you made space for me to embrace myself unconditionally. Comment: today I am my home, not my punishment. Like if you've ever healed without anyone noticing. And share this chapter if someone is carrying guilt that doesn't belong to them. Because sometimes, the deepest forgiveness is towards yourself. I rebuilt myself, piece by piece, tear by tear, truth by truth, no guides, no shortcuts, no you. And the most beautiful part is that in that process, I didn't become who I was before. I became someone I never imagined, stronger, clearer, more whole. Now, I walk without fear, and if pain returns, I invite it to sit. But I no longer give it the keys to my home, because I learned that an unattended wound becomes a pattern, and I chose to heal, not for you, but for me. For all the times I put myself last, for all the versions of me I denied to make space for you. Today, I no longer empty myself for anyone. Today, I fill myself with light, with faith, with purpose. And in that fullness, I discovered that the deepest love is not found in someone else's arms, but in the embrace I finally give myself. So yes, I bless you for breaking me, because thanks to that, I learned to become indivisible. Comment: today I embrace the woman who rose from the fire. Like if you've ever been reborn from your own ruins. And share this chapter if you know someone who needs to remember their soul was never broken. It was just waking up. Today, I look in the mirror, and for the first time, I don't look for scars. I look for signs, sacred marks of a battle I didn't lose, because I simply refused to surrender. I am not the one you couldn't love. I am the one who learned not to beg for love. I am not the mistake that made you leave. I am the miracle. That happened when I stayed with myself. Now I know who I am, and that knowing is worth more than any crown you refuse to give me. I no longer want to be chosen by someone else. I want to choose myself. Every single day. In my broken mornings, in my silent nights, in my moments of glory, and in my doubts. Because if I have myself, everything else is a compliment, not a necessity. And in that space, in that home I've built within me, there is no room for resentment, only for gratitude. Even toward you. Because your rejection was the spark that ignited my awakening. So I bless you, not from the wound, but from healing, from the woman I became, the one who never would have been born if you hadn't let me go. Comment: I embrace everything I am today. Like if you've ever realized that losing someone was what truly brought you back to yourself. And share this chapter if you know someone who needs to hear that they were never abandoned. They were redirected to their purpose. I've walked barefoot through the ruins of my story, and still, here I stand, tall, with my head high and my heart clean. Not because it didn't hurt, but because I didn't stop in the pain. I moved through it with tears, with rage, with silences that screamed louder than words. And on the other side, I found myself. I didn't become stone. I became root, firm, deep, and more alive than ever. Today, I don't need you to feel valuable. I don't wait for apologies to be at peace. I don't carry the weight of your absence. I carry the glory of having returned to myself. And that return was the true miracle. That's why, with a steady voice and a calm soul, I bless you. Because thanks to you, I awakened. Thanks to you, I rebuilt myself from the core. And thanks to you, I can now look back without staying trapped. I am free. I am whole. I am home. Comment: I am at peace with myself. And that changes everything. Like if you've ever turned your wound into wisdom, and share this chapter. If you know someone who needs to hear that healing is possible, that letting go is not weakness, but the greatest proof of self-love. Subscribe if this story touched your soul. Because here, we don't tell fairy tales. We tell truths that were once scars, and that today are wings.